new year, new stuff from Google, because this is pretty much what happens all the time, right? So they roll out a new policy, some SDK mandatory. This is what you do as an Android developer. You constantly maintain an app that doesn't need to be maintained at all. You kind of, live with that. I live with that for a decade, but this year was a bit different, and I was different. I don't want to play the game anymore. Let's try to do something different. My idea was, can I get out of the fenced garden that the Google Play Store is, Apple App Store is? I wanted more freedom, but the idea is like, okay, what can I do? And then I remember, web, why not? I mean, it worked 20 years ago. Maybe Rails is still there, probably. But I don't know shit. I don't remember anything. I just want to do something different. So I went back to Rails. Good morning, everybody. Today we are talking about what I have been doing for the last 12 months, and that's pretty much not Android. So yeah, you are still in time to switch on the blue side. If you want to stay with me, let's go. So about 20 years ago, I was at university. First one that says, boomer, I'll kill you. But the idea was we need to do a database, whatever, exam, and people are like, the suggested technology is Java. And I was like, I'm not going to build a CRUD app with Java because, I want to do something fancier, or at least I just hate Java enough. And I went for Ruby on Rails. So 20 years ago, Ruby on Rails was just starting, and the sales pitch was interesting because it was like, life is good, you get a lot of stuff for free, web is the new fancy stuff. Yeah, kinda, but everybody wanted a website. So I just learned a bit of Ruby, I learned a bit of HTML, and I just YOLO'd through the exam, and the exam was a success. I had a lot of fun. We had a team project. The rest of the team didn't do shit. They got just the high mark because I was running the whole project by myself. It was cool. So I was happy. It didn't matter. I was like, this is fun. I can do this. And then I graduated, and reality gave me a reality check, let's say, because there was no other thing than Java. If you are old enough, if you weren't in kindergarten 20 years ago, you probably will remember that there was only Java. It was just Java Enterprise, especially in Italy. So, I had to do Java. There was no way around. The problem
clawback 5, I think.
Over time got solved in a way because Android arrived. Something happened. And I realized that I was poor enough and skilled enough to be an Android developer because I knew Java and I couldn't afford an iPhone. So pretty much that's the definition of an Android developer 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And I started building apps in my spare time because I was broke. So there was no money to spend around. So I just started building apps. And some app became, somehow popular, and, a bit of money from ads and that kind of stuff, profitable, you will call it today. And that triggered a nice event last year because with a few friends, we decided to build some Android apps, like a collective kind of thing, because we have busy lives. But maybe, if I build a screen and you build a screen, Compose was cool. And I was like, let's present this to Droidcon. We had fun. We had slides, we had ads, we had analytics. The thing was cool. But then, new year, new stuff from Google, because this is pretty much what happens all the time, right? So they roll out a new policy, some SDK mandatory bullshit update, whatever. But this is what you do as an Android developer. You constantly maintain an app that doesn't need to be maintained at all, right? The thing is running, but now you need to update libraries, and you kind of, live with that. I live with that for a decade. But this year was a bit different, and I was different. And the thing is that I got fed up. I don't want to play the game anymore. Let's try to do something different. And my idea was, can I get out of the fenced garden that the Google Play Store is, the Apple App Store is? I wanted more freedom, get out of the fenced garden, get outside, touch grass, whatever. But the idea is like, okay, what can I do? And then I remember, web, why not? I mean, it worked 20 years ago. Maybe Rails is still there, probably. But I don't know shit. I don't remember anything. I just want to do something different. So I went back to Rails. Rails is still there. And it has 20 years of, maturity, let's call it. Plus, there is this new fancy thing that I can try out, progressive web apps, okay? So this is the official website. Blah, blah, blah. If you go to Wikipedia, you get probably like a better explanation or description. So the idea of PWAs is that you build a website, and then you can kinda install it on your phone or your on your desktop, like an app. You end up with an icon in your launcher that looks like an app, but it's actually a website. So it was fascinating from, let's try this, because, I mean, how hard can it be? And, then Apple happened, because I wanted to start this thing, and the universe sent me a message, Ivan, think again, you're an Android developer, what are you doing? And my idea of being multi-platform and cross-platform or whatever, and just building this once and it works everywhere, it was just prematurely shut down by Apple. But then Bruxelles happened, and Apple was like, we do it. No, there was a glitch. It was not a feature. It was actually a bug. Your PWAs are all the rage. Please don't fine us. So then I thought, we're back. I'm so back, baby. So let's do the stuff. So I pushed learning Rails and Ruby a lot, but it's also 2024. So as we saw in the keynote, GP is there to help us. As my friend Mike called it also, Van Damme, or Claude Van Damme is here to help us. So I was like, I don't know how to do this stuff, but I can ask the machines, right? I'm old enough and experienced enough to call out the bullshit if the machine just tries to sell me some hallucination, but I can probably manage it. And I started building my apps, my Android apps, as web apps. I was like, okay, let's do this. The first one is my most popular app. It's called Kindle Gratis. It gives you free books for your Kindle. So now, there is a top bar, there is a menu for the language, everything is super web, but then it's just a grid with a couple of things that Van Damme just pulled out of the hat. No fancy stuff. But if you look closely, in the top right corner, you see like a weird kind of desktop plus arrow icon. That's the install icon. If you click it, you get a dialog that says, do you want to install the app? And you can install the app. And how it's looking on mobile is pretty much the same, because Chrome on any like real browser can help you with this. Even Safari at some extent. So you get like a pop-up in the app, in the website, to say you can install this, or you get even a menu in the three dots menu. You get an item that you can click, and you get the usual alert to say you want to install it. If you install it, the whole thing works out of the box like by itself. Chrome installs the thing, Android installs the thing, and then you end up with a bunch of icons on your on your home screen in your launcher, then you can drag them to your home screen, that they look pretty much like any Android app because, well, the icon is the usual PNG, 500 by 500, whatever. So you can't actually say that it's a web app. It's just an icon on your desktop. And if you click it, well, it opens the website, but it opens it like an app. So it removes all the bezels, the Chrome stuff around. You only see the content of your app. Now I was like, okay, let's try to build this really, really, how can I teach this, right? Because I want to spread the verb. And there is pretty much nothing to do because DHH, the CTO of 37 Signals and, the inventor, the creator of Rails, it got so pissed off with Apple Store that he made his #1 task for last year to make PWAs ready out of the box in Rails, because that's the attitude. You solve a problem with violence. How you want to promote something, you make it so easy that people actually need to disable it if they don't want it. And now I have a technology, but I'm also very peculiar when it comes to learning and teaching. I need a project to work on. Okay, I want to solve a problem, and that's how I learn and I remember things. So now I have the technology, now I need a problem to solve. And I went back to last year Droidcon talk, where we introduced the next step that we wanted to build, Horoscope Eye. That is a horoscope app. So the design was by Seb in the audience. Daniele was on the stage with me. So the idea was like, we built something for the horoscope, because we can use the power of AI to build the best horoscope app, because there is nothing better than a large language model hallucinating to give you the best horoscope. That by definition is just, a bunch of crap. So how do we start? So I draw you a nice mermaid flowchart to start with the Rails. So pretty much straightforward. If you have Rails installed, you just run Rails new and the name of your project. If you don't have Rails installed, but you have Docker for some reason, there is a script that builds you a Docker container with Rails inside, and you pretty much are done. So what you will do is then open Visual Studio Code in the folder, and Visual Studio Code recognizes that you are running it in a dev container scenario, and it gives you a nice dialog that says, do you want to open this in a dev container? And it opens the project again in a dev container. Now, if you are not familiar with Docker and dev containers, like I wasn't a few months ago, from an Android developer point of view, it feels like magic, because you have this tiny virtual machine, kind that it's like a tiny Ubuntu that has everything inside. It has your project inside, has the dependencies inside, the compiler, the prompt, the database, everything is inside. And it's just a configuration file, you run the thing, and this is what you get. Basically, everything starts magically magical, and you end up in Visual Studio Code, and the thing just is there. Okay, everything is there. You don't have to set up your machine. Everybody in your team has the same setup. They just clone the repo, they click play, and Visual Studio and Docker do all the stuff. Now, this is super cool. For me, it was like, this is brilliant, and it solves a lot of time. So I can also involve other people, and it's going to be super easy for them. And how do we run this? So to start a Rails project, so pretty much you have a terminal, and you do bin dev, and it runs. It spins up Puma, the web server, and the fancy stuff is that if you go to localhost 3000 on your machine, it works because Docker is automatically mapping the 3000 port inside the container on your machine. So, you know, if you feel like, everything feels like you are building stuff on your machine, while it's actually in a container that you can shut off or restart or rebuild, and it's easier. It was very fascinating for me because we are not exposed to this stuff as Android developers, even though now we probably have screenshot testing with paparazzi that probably is going to run on Docker, fingers crossed. So, you know, we did that. We made it happen. So how do we start? From a domain modeling point of view, an horoscope as a couple of strings, you know, zodiac sign, a description, and there is a time period, and there is a date. And we want the basic CRUD stuff. You know, I want to create the thing, I want to read, I want to update, and I want to destroy. Pretty straightforward. Now, how do we do this? From a Rails point of view, you need to remember the Rails doctrine. Feels very philosophical, but the first one is basically, so we don't have the first one on Android, okay? So we don't do that. So, but Rails does it, okay? Optimize for programmer happiness. That's the first thing. The second thing, we also don't have it in Android, convention over configuration, because everybody has an opinion on Android, and that's intense sometimes. In Rails, DHH has an opinion, that's it. It's his thing, and you just use it because, well, the reasoning behind is, it comes from something that is working, like, you know, Basecamp or Hey, email, and they extract stuff. So they don't pull the concept and the feature out of their hat. They actually extract that from working software. So, you know, it's a bit easier for them to sell the convention. How do you do it in Rails? This is pretty much it. So Rails lives and breathes templates and generators. So you run Rails, generate, scaffold, and then you say the name of the model, horoscope, and then you say, I need a zodiac sign that is a string, a description that is a text, and a time period that is a string. And you just run it. Rails is basically generating a shit tons of file for you from the model, the database migration, the controller, the views, the test placeholder. It generates everything for you. And if you go again on localhost 3000, it also it tells you, well, you need to run a migration on the database because you just generated a migration, so run it. And you can run it from the browser. There is so you click a button in your Chrome, and a migration on your database runs. So, you know, it's pretty intense when you are like, oh, I'm gonna do a SQL string query for my room database. Like, yeah, sure, whatever. So it's a bit, and this is the migration. The migration is pretty much this, right? So you create a table, you create a couple of strings, a text that is a longer string, and you get for free timestamps. Those are like, you know, created that, updated that. You get them for free because Rails gives you stuff for free. You update, and now you have this. Because remember, Rails generated the views for you. So this is the index. If you go to localhost horoscopes, you have a list of all the horoscope in the database. Cool. If you click the button, you go to a web page that has a form to do the new. Because remember, you have like read, create, update, and delete for free. So now you can create a horoscope. And again, you can show a horoscope, and then you can edit a horoscope. You can go back to the list of everything is just there. So it's very zoomed because for the sake of the slides, and the UI is very basic. But this thing is running on Tailwind CSS, so you can do pretty much everything. And I was like, okay, let's do authentication. How do I do this? You know, on Android, you do it with Firebase. You know, I want to do a Google sign-in. Pretty similar-ish with Rails. You just import a gem that is called OmniOut Google Auth 2 gem because, you know, fancy naming. But then that's it. You just create a user with an email because it has to match the stuff on, that Google is sending you. You create a Google Cloud project, and you create a session control. Session controller is pretty much, it's 20 lines. You can copy paste it. This is going to work on every project. This is literally what you need. So the idea is that, you know, you do the request to Google. Google sends you back a response if the user is correctly logged, like a user from Google. They have a Google sign-in thingy. So you get an email, you get a UI ID. Now, user.find.create, user dot, that's active record, because active record is an anti-pattern. You shouldn't use it. It turns out that it's very handy to have the name of the model dot a bunch of shit that helps you find stuff on the database. So you don't have to build a repository, you don't have to build interface, whatever. No, you want to search a user on the database, user.find or create, because if it's not there, also create it, fuck it, right? So what do? I want something that is, I want to find or create a user that has an email and this UID. So this thing does two things at the same time. If it's a new user, surprise, it creates it and tries to store it. If a returning user, well, now he finds it, and now the user is logging in instead of signing up. And then what do? Well, nothing much. If the user is persisted, so if I managed to save it or read it from the database, create a session with the user ID inside, and take him to the root page. The end. This is all. So this is the whole. Oh no! That's the screenshot. Sorry. So the screenshot is actually showing if you do a bit of CSS kind of stuff, how the page could look. You have just a sign-in button. But it's also showing you, if you use DevTools for Chrome, you can emulate the mobile version of your website, right? So it looks like this if you're running on a phone, and it looks slightly different if you look it on a desktop. That's the interesting part. So now Ivan is doing a bit of CSS. Bear with me. Fancy stuff. Boom. So what do we have here? So we have the desktop version that has a toolbar, a top bar navigation at the top. And on Android, on any mobile, you have a bottom navigation bar. That's it. This is all CSS. You don't have any external whatever. Everything is done by Claude because I couldn't be bothered to, I don't have time to learn this stuff. So I just asked, can you do a material design bottom navigation on mobile? Yes, sure, Ivan. Here you go. And this is it. So from now on, you can do pretty much everything. It looks like a mobile app on mobile, and you know, it's just a bit of fancy stuff. But how do we do the PWA thing? So it comes for free with Rails. So you have a manifest file, and you just throw a few things in there, right? You throw a name, you throw the icon, the description, and you also have a theme color and a background color that you see when you open the app, you know, when it starts. You can customize it. It's just really, first thing that you should customize is the icon. I mean, I'm no designer, sorry Sebastiano, but I think this is not enough to please the user. So I asked the AI, because I still can't be bothered with this stuff, and Grok came up with this thing. Legit, I mean, it's classy for a horoscope app. I think it's YOLO enough. And now how do we make everything working? Well, that's it. So you have a root file in your Rails application. Every line's there specifies, you know, there is a GET request on this thing, there is a POST request, and for the PWA stuff, you just uncomment the 2 lines there that by default are commented because, you know, you never know. So there, you comment out the string, and now they work. And now you have this. So you have the same thing, but now you have the icon in the top corner. You have the fav icon in the address field. You also have the fav icon in the dialog for the PWA. You just need to restart the server and refresh the page, and everything works. Now, yeah, sure, Ivan. It's a website. Cool. What can we really do today with PWA? So there's a website for that. There's a website that tells you exactly what you can do with PWAs today. First of all, you can do a way fancier install screen. I use the bare minimum default alert because YOLO, but you can go fancy as much as you want. So every time you try to install the app, this thing pops up. Looks awesome in my opinion. I mean, this thing is like, it couldn't be fancier than this. And well, you install the app, and then what? You can do notifications. So this is the first question that I get every single fucking time. Yeah, but how you do notifications? Now, today, you need to do a bit of work because DHH was busy with Rails World last month, so he didn't have enough time. But in Rails 8.1, notifications are working out of the box. So you just need to create a new Rails project, and that's it. Notifications on PWAs work the same way that on mobile. When you enable notification on your mobile, your backend people that you don't talk to, because why would you? They do all the machinery with Firebase, Google Cloud Messaging and Apple Cloud Messaging. You just say, oh yeah, ask the permission, everything is fine, YOLO, you know, and magically magical, you get notifications. In a couple of months, you will have the same thing with Rails because DHH is doing all the weightlifting. But this is the thing. You click a button, your backend receives the request, sends the request to Google or Apple, and now you are registered to notifications. And then what happens? When the backend sends a notification to Google Messaging talks to Chrome that is registered now with Play Services, blah, blah, blah. And then you see a notification there. And that's it. You click the notification and the web app opens, the PWA opens. What else? Web authentication. So, you know, a few of you work with banks or fancy stuff, and they do the fingerprinty thingy. Yeah, you can do it with web as well. That's already working everywhere. It's working on iOS, it's working on Android. You click register credentials. In this example, there's a demo, so you can check the source code. Nobody is stealing your fingerprint. I can't have a screenshot because for privacy reason, when you pop up the fingerprint dialog, everything goes black because privacy, so I can not do slides, and taking a picture of the phone was very horrible. But when you click register, the fingerprint thingy pops up, you click, and then you get a callback on the website that says the fingerprint was legit, everything works. So fingerprint, oh, also Face ID, because why not, right? If you're doing the Face ID stuff, that also works on Android, on iOS. What else do I have? I have a video. Ooh, fancy. Okay. So, what if I want to do barcode scanner? Boom. Oh, look at that. What's that? Shout out to Code with Italian. Sorry for the yeah, sorry, Francesco. So the thing is, you can do also NFC, because why not? Why don't? I mean, your web app needs the NFC compatibility stuff. So what do? You can write the NFC luckily for me, I had Code with Italian's NFC badge, and then you can write it, and then it asks you, when you want to read, it asks you for permissions, because we are not savages, so everything that is sensitive on Android and needs a permission is going to be the same for PWAs. So there is no way around, because privacy matters everywhere. So Chrome is going to ask you for permissions to access the thing, and then you can read the badge. And that was the actual badge that I wrote yesterday, NFC. Now, what if I hate myself enough to keep being on the Play Store? Because why not? So the first thing that you can do by Google is bubble wrap. Pretty much you take your app and it bubbles it, creates an APK that you push on the Play Store. Or you can be a bit fancier and you can use Hotwire Native. So Hotwire Native is by, again, 37 Signals. They build their apps with this technology. It's a couple of libraries. You throw them in your app. You replace the main activity layout with a fragment view. You put some code that they give you, and that's it. You're pretty much, now you have an app that you can publish on Play Store, then when you launch it is actually opening your website. So you build a website, and now you can build a wrapper around that is on the Play Store and on the App Store and on web. But that's just a web view, right? A web view is pretty much boring. They went a bit further because now they also have bridge components. Bridge components are, I don't know how they work because they are so magical for me that I still don't know how to make them work like in my mind. They work in code, but only in my mind. So they interact with what's around the web view. And in this case, you have something like a profile button, and then you have a piece of HTML on your website that is, says /profile, and the bridging tools, they map the native button on Android with a navigation in the website. And they can do this back and forth. They can the navigation is native, so you have every navigation animation, it's native, it's done in Android native. So when you click the bottom nav icon, for instance, that I had, that navigates to a new screen. So it's not just reloading the web view, it's navigating to another screen from a user point of view. So what they do is, they use the native stuff. So they screenshot the current screen, and they use the native crossfading on Android or the sliding out animation on iOS, and then you land on the new page with a progress bar that is pretty much just loading the web page behind. But from a look and feel point of view, that's as Android as an iOS it can get. And of course, if you want to use native screens because you have something that you can do only in Compose, or it's very native, heavy, counter stuff, you can do the same stuff. You can have half an app or a few screens in Compose or SwiftUI, and the rest is the web app. And you can interoper everything. And you can save as much time as you can, because, well, the website is already there, and now you have a couple of people probably just messing around with a Compose app or an iOS app. But now, I can't convince you to try this. I can only make you curious. So this is what I did this year. So I started in January, not knowing anything. I didn't know anything. I was like, I want to do this. In 11 months, I built 7 apps. Those are actual products, because in my philosophy is like, I want to solve a problem with a technology. I have a 3-year-old, Mike has kids, so we have bedtime stories. It was an Android app that we built last year with a few friends back there. Now is a web app So now I can also reach iOS parents. The nice part is that I'm using Stripe. So all the money I get is mine. And this is it. So you solve a problem, you throw a credit card in front of it, and now you have probably a product. And, you know, half my idea, half my problems, half my solutions, half Van Damme solutions, and that's it. And you build stuff. And they work everywhere, and you learn new things. So thank you for being with me, and enjoy the rest of Droidcon. Give it a shot if you are interested. Thank you again. Woo.
Yeah, boy! Bravo, bravo.
Thank you.
Marvelous. Thank you so much for that. That was great, wasn't it? Green team, green team. Amazing. Right, we've got time, I think, for one question.
Oh, yeah,
so
sure.